Hi guys, and thank you so much for joining us today on this podcast episode. And today we're focusing on how to create better relationships. Now, I'm sure this is a topic many of us are interested in, and I knew when I stopped drinking, one of the things I wanted to focus on was having better relationships, having more depth and joy in my connections, and truly focusing on being in those relationships and finding fulfillment in them. So what I'm going to share with you today is the monthly practice James and I use, James is my fiance, to help us to build a deeper relationship, a better connection, and also to grow together as individuals and as a couple. So before we dive into this monthly practice that's absolutely going to change your life and your relationships, I want to talk about why this is so important. Now, when we stop drinking, it can be very clear how we use drinking to belong and to fit. That was one of the reasons why I kept drinking after periods of time when I knew that alcohol was not benefiting me, because I wanted so badly to fit and to belong within the culture that normalizes drinking as a way to have fun and socialize. So when you stop drinking, it can feel like there is a bit of a divide. And at first, I want you to know that that's okay. And actually, that divide and feeling separate from culture is actually necessary. Because the truth is, if you're falling into patterns that are not benefiting you, this could be in any area of your life, you have to separate yourself from those patterns in order to create a shift in your life. Now, when I was drinking, I was only drinking on the weekends, maybe a Thursday night, but mainly Friday and Saturday when I was out at bars with my friends and family members. And when I stopped drinking, it was kind of like a culture shock. I'm like, oh shit, like what do I do for fun now, right? Everything had to change in my social life and stuff like that. And what I realized is I felt very distant. At that time, James and I, my now fiance, we were dating, and I had a couple close friends, but I realized that my relationships, it felt like there was some space in between them. So when you first stop drinking, it's really important to give yourself that space to focus on what you need. Because if you have fallen into an unhealthy pattern of using alcohol to cope or numb or suppress emotions, it's important to spend that time when you first stop drinking to focus on your healing and to focus on healthy ways that you can release these suppressed emotions so you're no longer using drinking or other numbing behaviors to cope and numb. So when you're in that part of your journey, the healing journey, feeling separate is actually a good thing because you can focus on yourself and give yourself the space that you need to heal, but also to gain clarity of the patterns that you're falling into that were not benefiting you and understanding why you're falling into them so you can do something different. So after you spend the time healing and getting clarity on those patterns and starting to get out of them, you'll start to feel like you have more energy, and you'll start to realize like, okay, I'm ready for deeper connections in my life. This is the pattern that I went through and what I saw on my journey, and I witnessed this in almost every single one of my clients' journeys. So when you're doing this for your relationships, it's an incredible opportunity to actually build more depth and connections in all of your relationships. And I thought drinking was something that brought me closer to my friends and my fiance and my family. And I realized that it is all surface level, because when you take away the drinking for some relationships, for some friendships that I now know we're not in alignment any longer, there was like nothing to talk about. We had nothing in common. I'm like, do I even like this person? And it's not that they're a bad person, but when we took away drinking, we didn't have much in common. So building belonging and building relationships based on who someone is, not just the fact that they can drink, because let's face it, anyone can drink, but actually figuring out who they are, the shared values that you have in common, that is what a relationship is based on. And that's how you find fulfilling relationships. And that's really important. Now, I'm not saying people who drink are bad, not at all. Out of my close friends and family and my fiance, I'm the only one who's completely sober. And I love my family, my friends, and my fiance. And what we've done is we've learned how to build our relationship based on our values and what's important to us and our interests, and that doesn't include alcohol. So the tip I'm going to share with you today, how to build deeper connections. This is created by Ben Meer. I think I'm saying this correctly. It's Meer. And James actually sent me this over Instagram. He found a post that shared something called Life Dinner. And Life Dinner is all about growing together as a couple emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Now you can do this I'm doing it with my fiance, you can do it with a friend. Really, you can do this with any relationship in your life. And what it is on a monthly basis, getting together, and I journal beforehand because I love to journal, but journaling and reflecting with the other person based on 3 categories. Now, what I'll do is below this podcast is in the notes section, I will type out each section and different journaling prompts below. Now, I have customized these a bit to what resonates with me, so feel free to do what works for you and leave the rest. So the first section that you want to focus on is your personal reflection on the last month for yourself. So your personal reflection. So what you want to do with this is over the last month, look at okay, what could I have done better? What am I proud of? What's causing me anxiety or stress? What am I worried about for the future? And what am I excited about for the future? So those are the questions under the personal reflections for last month. And again, you can elaborate, you can come up with more questions, but it's really important here to take accountability for the life that you are creating. Because when you're in a relationship, it's really important that, I believe, as individuals, you are still growing. So this section of the Life Dinner can help you to honestly look back on the last month and reflect on okay, this went well, this didn't. What changes do I want to make? And as you're growing as an individual, this can help you grow as a couple. So that's the first section, your personal reflection on the last month. And the next section is looking at your relationship reflection on the last month. So this one at first, James, my fiance and I were like, oh, okay, this is a bit, it was not challenging at first, but it was kind of like, do we say the things that are bothering us? Because that can cause some friction, maybe. So the questions are, I'll read the questions and you'll understand. The first question is for the relationship reflection on the last month is, what's one little thing we noticed about each other that we love? That question I personally enjoy. And James does a lot because, and you can reflect on this in your life, how often do we tell those people in our life that we love what we admire about them? I know for me, it wasn't that often until I started doing this exercise. We might think it and we might hold it in our heart, but being able to share with someone what you admire about them can grow that connection in such profound ways. And it also helps you to feel good because you're sharing something positive to someone you love and care about. And it can also help that person be seen, and it can show them how much you actually admire them and find them a value in your life. So that question I absolutely love. So I'd recommend doing that for everyone in your life. So that's the first question. The second one is, are there things we learned about from our relationship? And the third one, how might we want to improve moving forward? So the second and third question, this has been something that has been growing pains for James and I. At first it was like, oh, do we call out the areas in our life where there might be some friction, it might cause anger, maybe some resentment. But we are honest with each other and we set boundaries before going into this, saying okay, this is a space where we can be open and clear about our communication, and whatever we share is in the best interest for our relationship. So it's not about attacking your partner or blaming them. It's about being truthful with how you are experiencing the relationship and things that you can see changed in a positive and beneficial way. So that section and those last 2 questions in particular, they help you to practice honest and clear communication, and that is key for any relationship. And the more space that you create, giving yourself the time to discuss this with your partner, the more comfortable that you will get And the more proactive you'll become at identifying when there are things in your relationship that are not working them and shifting them quicker. Because the faster we can recognize what isn't working in a relationship, the faster you can create change and actually experience what you desire in a relationship. So that is the second section. And the third one is personal goals for the next month. So for this, it's looking at, okay, what do I as an individual want to achieve over the next 4 weeks? That again is looking at like, okay, what do I want to focus on in my life? What's important to me? And how can I spend my time to create this life and lead this life that will allow me to have the experiences I like and feel the way that I want to feel? So those are the 3 sections. And again, under this podcast, what I will do is type them out so you can reference them quickly. And James and I do this every month. So it's called our life dinner. We do it on the first or the beginning of the month as a way to reset ourselves. And I've noticed that for the past couple of years, I've been in business for 3 years, and every month I do a business reflection. Every month I sit down, look at my goals, look at my income, look at what programs I'm launching, do client reviews, and I give myself this time to reflect on what's working, what's not, and to create shifts. And before I heard about Life Dinner, I didn't do that in my relationship. And it's so crazy to think about how relationships are pillar for in our life and how we're able to experience our time. But yet a majority of us, I know I didn't before this, we don't spend the time to actually reflect on our relationships in general, and to create the changes that we need in our life. And this exercise, doing this life dinner, can help you to grow as individuals and as a couple, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And doing this will help bring you closer to experiencing what you want in your life and continuing to grow as a couple. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast video about Life Dinner, and I encourage you to grab your partner, grab a friend, or any relationship in your life which you value, and try out Life Dinner and let me know how it goes. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Give me 1 second. Let me save this. So for those of you who are new, what I do is not new, who are new to my live video, is I record my podcast live. It's more fun that way. And then what I do afterwards is I upload it to my podcast channel. You can find it on all the major streaming platforms. And I'm right here saving the audio file. 1 second. Okay, so that's saved for later. Perfect. So what I can do now, and what I like to do, is spend some time after these episodes to answer any questions that you have. Oh, you're welcome, JS101. I'm so happy you enjoyed that. And again, to find the podcast, if you click on the link in my bio, you'll find a link to access the podcast on all your major streaming platforms. All right, so Life Dinner. Let me know what questions you guys have about that. For a while. Yes, Daniel, I have been wedding planning. James and I are getting married in September, and I underestimated how much work there was to do. All good stuff, but spending a bit more time diving into wedding planning and enjoying the season festivities. Hi, Shaquille. Hi, everyone. Hello. Okay, awesome. Pretty hair. Thank you. I'm growing my hair out for the wedding. But yeah, so if you guys have any questions about Life Dinner, let me know. Again, this is a process that it's really fun to do. And at first, there can be some resistance to doing it, because asking introspective questions about yourself and having someone witness it can feel a bit uncomfortable, but also asking those hard questions around your partner and sharing freely, it takes a lot of trust, but also builds a lot more depth and joy and connection in your relationship. So it's totally worth it. James is getting married in 10 days. Started planning last week. Hell yes. Good for you. Have fun. What a fun time of our lives to get married and just grow into those relationships. And this is something that I've noticed as James and I are getting married. We're having, we're not really doing couples counseling. We're having our uncle, he's getting ordained and he's marrying us. It's very special for us to have our family member involved, but he's having some sessions with us, just going over different topics of our life and things to consider, and just spending that time asking each other questions and figuring out what we actually like is so important, because we don't normally spend the time doing that. And the more time we create space for understanding what we desire and what we don't, and moving away from what does not feel good for us, the more space we can create in our life for what we do love. And that's really important. And something I realized since I've stopped drinking, for those of you who don't know, I've stopped drinking, and it changed my life in the most profound ways, where I shifted from a relationship coach to a sobriety coach, because our relationship with ourselves impacts all of our relationships. And if we're still drinking, we're still hiding parts about ourselves that don't feel good. And you have to truly know yourself in order to be whole and show up for others in a relationship. So since I have done that, I've realized that, okay, when you stop drinking, you have a lot more energy, and having more fulfillment in my relationships is something that is really important. And Life Dinner is a way to help you to really grow stronger in your relationships. All right, let me build this closer. I have a hard time reading these comments sometimes. Okay, so how did you stop? Jacqueline, hello. I'm hoping today's day one. Oh, yay, I'm so excited for you. That's awesome. Okay, Jacqueline, how you stop. What I did is I worked with a coach, because I knew that if I could have stopped on my own, I would have. And I was not drinking every day. I was only drinking on the weekends. But I kept falling into patterns of taking a break for a month or 2 months, but I'd always fall back into the pattern of drinking to excess, because I was using alcohol to cope and numb. So that's the first thing right here is, if you are stopping, finding support, and I am a coach, so if you would like to be supported, feel free to send me a message and we can chat more about this. But it's really important to be supported in your healing. And healing is important because drinking is a numbing tool. And in our society, we are not taught how to process and to release emotions in a healthy and long-lasting way. So what we end up doing is drinking is we suppress all the emotions that don't feel good. This could be anxiety. This could be stress, guilt, blame, shame. Anything in our life, any emotion that doesn't necessarily feel good for us, we suppress it, because we don't know and we are not taught how to give space to our emotions, so it does not feel safe. And what I mean by that, let's say you are almost in a car accident, and this creates a lot of anxiety in your body. What happens is your body tries to suppress that, because anxiety is something that makes you feel uncomfortable. And when you are encountering an emotion that makes you feel uncomfortable, this activates your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight response. So back when we were cavemen or cave women, when we were to encounter danger, let's say this is a saber-toothed tiger, what would happen is we would activate our sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight, and we'd use that to run away from the tiger or fight it to keep us safe. But nowadays, when we have anxiety and we don't know how to process it or to give space to it, our sympathetic nervous system is processed, and we go back into that fight or flight response. And when that feels too overwhelming in our body, we try to numb with drinking. So that's why it's so important. Even if you stop drinking, I personally thought it was easy. I just stopped. And a majority of my clients feel the same way. When I decided that, like, okay, this isn't good for me, and I invested in a coach to keep me accountable and to help with healing, I just stopped. But what you have to focus on, Jacqueline, and anyone else who wants to stop, is learning how to release your trapped emotions and learning tools to regulate your nervous system, because that can help you to truly heal and to not go from one numbing behavior to the other. Because what I see happen too often is people stop drinking, but because they don't know how to release their suppressed emotions, they go from drinking to overworking to binge watching TV, and they're constantly going from one numbing behavior to the other to suppress what doesn't feel good because they don't know how to release it. So there's your answer. And let me know if you have any questions off of that. Funny question there about adult content. No, I don't. No interest in that. Okay. I'm sorry, but you're so young. How can you help out a 50-year-old? So this is actually a good question. Frosty2468. Hold on, Jacqueline. Hence probably why the next day I always have. Yes. Okay, Jacqueline. So if you notice when you start drinking that you have anxiety afterwards when you stop, that's because you've always had anxiety or you've had it for a few years, but you are suppressing it with drinking. And that's where it's coming to the surface when you stop. And there are healthy ways to release anxiety. Some of the methods I use with my clients are EFT tapping and breath work. And both of those are extremely beneficial techniques to help you release this anxiety so you don't have to hold it or feel it anymore. And once you learn these techniques, oh my goodness, is it so freeing. And that's what you want. Okay, thank you so much. I will definitely message you. Awesome, Jacqueline. So happy to hear that helps. I know when I first stopped drinking, at first I was kind of like, what do I do with myself? Like I stopped and that was easy. But then I'm like, I need to focus on my healing and I didn't know where to start. So I'd love to provide any guidance that I can. Okay, so there's a question here about working with people who are older. So I am 29. A majority of my clients are in their 30s and 40s. Some are in their 50s. And me being younger is actually a benefit because I'm able to see a different perspective. And that's what you want from someone who's supporting you. You want someone that can show you a different perspective and help see things a different way than you can. Because the truth is, if you're stuck in patterns that are not serving you and you're having a hard time getting out of them, that's because you're not able to see a new perspective. So by doing that, by helping my clients see a new perspective and holding them in space where they are healing, they're then able to create change in their life. And the truth is, no matter how old you are, you could be 60. And if you have not yet gone on the journey of stopping drinking or healing, you're not able to hold space for someone. It's so important that you spend the time going on the journey yourself. And this is something that I'm able to bring to my clients in a really unique way. It's because I've been on the journey. I have been to the lowest lows of the healing. I've been to the highest highs of like how great it can be. I've been to all the in-betweens. So I know how to hold my clients throughout the process. I can help guide them every step of the way. And I can help them when they get stuck. Because I've been to those hard moments and I can help give them the tools to get out of it. And that is so important. And that's more important than age, in my opinion. Okay, golden year. Oh, thank you. JA_C, medication doesn't work. We need to get to the root of this problem. Okay. So for me personally, I was diagnosed with depression a few years ago, and this is when I was still drinking on the weekends. And the doctor mentioned antidepressants, and I was never interested in that. What I decided to do instead was to make lifestyle changes. I stopped drinking. I focused on my healing. I dove into healthy. I focused more on my fitness, on what I was eating. It helps because my fiance is a personal trainer, so that made it easy. But I created these lifestyle changes. I focused on my sleep too and started meditating and all this fun stuff. And I realized by being conscious of how I spent my time and creating more space for healing and actually releasing the emotions that I have suppressed, I noticed a complete difference. Now, there is some times in my life where I do feel down and life is hard. I mean, it's funny because when you stop drinking, some people are like, oh yeah, life is amazing. Life is so much better when you stop drinking, but there are still lows. There are still times in your life that are hard, that are challenging, that are upsetting. But when you're able to face those times head on with a clear mind and be full of energy, you can get through it a lot faster. One of my clients said to me, she said, nothing seems as insurmountable as it used to when I was drinking. And there seems to be less problems because when she was drinking, that was creating more problems in her relationship with her friends, with how she's feeling about herself. And when you stop drinking, you love yourself, you trust yourself. You're able to problem solve and to get through things faster because you trust yourself, number one. And also you have more energy, more clarity to see a new perspective and actually to work through it. And that right there, being the person who can surf the waves of life is such a a skill, but also such a benefit of when you stop drinking, because life isn't perfect. But when you can overcome any challenge that comes your way, that is what's important. Okay, perfect. Awesome, guys. Whoa, hold on. All the comments like to come in all at once. No, I'm not single. I'm actually getting married in, I think it's like 75 days. I have a countdown going, so I'm super excited. Besides my desk, I have the goodie bags for my bridesmaids. I have my wedding band, so that's all fun. Over 3 years sober, and it's amazing. Oh, Velo the Equipped. Congratulations for 3 years. That is absolutely amazing. I'd love to hear what benefits you've been experiencing if you want to chat those in the comments. Okay, JAC, how do you get through the first few hours? So what I'd recommend is if you're having a hard time stopping and you are worried about there being withdrawal symptoms, it's really important to seek medical attention, because there is a component of drinking that is tied to the chemical reaction to it. So for me, when I stopped drinking, and this is what I support people with, it's more of an emotional addiction more than anything. It's about feeling like you need to drink in order to belong. It's about drinking because that's what's been normalized for you. It's what your family and friends do, so you do it to have fun. It's looking at, okay, if it's a social component, if it's being used to numb, not in a severe way, but just kind of like a light way. And if it's being used for like more of an emotional crutch, that's something I can help people with. But if it's more of a chemical addiction and you're worried about the withdrawal symptoms, then definitely seek medical attention and make sure you have the support you need to do that safely. Harvard Grant Study. Have you heard of Harvard Grant Study? I think you've, oh no, I haven't. Henelt, I think that's your name. I'm gonna write that down. That sounds interesting. Harvard Grant Study, okay. Thank you for sharing that. I always love finding new tidbits to explore. All right, awesome. CD, perfect. Okay, guys, I think these are all the comments. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. And again, if you're just hopping on, I just finished up a live recording of my podcast. And this week we talked about how to create better relationships. So this is for anyone who wants to find more connection or fulfillment or joy in their relationships. And when you go to my bio, you can click on my link and you will find access to my podcast on all the major platforms streaming podcasts. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. And I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Bye, everyone.